welcome to Simplify Network Automation with NetGuru. I'm your host, and today we've brought a very special friend of mine, Karim Iskander. Karim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining, buddy. How are you?
Adrian, thanks for having me. I'm doing good, man. It's been
It's been a
it's been a
while.
long time
I know.
since we've worked together on things like this. So thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
No, it's always my pleasure. I was thinking about having you for a while, and anyway, I'm glad it happened. We made it happen. So for folks that might not know you, which I don't know who that is, but tell us a bit about yourself.
Too kind, too kind. All right. So I'm Karim Iskander. I lead technical advocacy with Learn with Cisco. I'm also a principal engineer in the organization. You and I worked together
Yes,
forever
we
when
did.
we were starting DevNet.
We did.
Good times, definitely good times. Yeah, I've been around Cisco for about 17 years now. I'd like to say I grew up in DevNet, so that's how within Cisco I spent 7 years working with Adrian and doing advocacy in DevNet, and I moved over to the certification group where I live today.
And you're still doing advocacy, right? Like you said, and you're still covering creation of content and AI. We're gonna talk about today. So tell us a bit about today, right? Everybody's talking about AI, right? I know you have a workflow for us. Tell us a bit about what's going on with that right
Yeah. So look, there's a lot of noise out there with AI. Like it's overwhelming, and when as part of advocacy and part of like just teaching our community and talking to our community is about showing them what's real for us as network engineers. And so if we look at that, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put together a series of content that um, that will resonate well with the network engineer that's trying to kind of traverse and figure out their way around. Okay, so what do I use AI for? How can it improve my day to day? What's real for me versus what's all the noise and then just the marketing of AI itself. And so I started this series called the AI Break, which is a series of blog where I started
now?
building on skills for the network engineer when it comes to AI. And so I started with just the basic of what is MCP, what MCP, and this is about 6 months ago, and MCP was about 6 months old. Because as you know, when we talk about network automation in general, MCP plays really nicely in network automation, right? And it allows you to bring in that connection into the network APIs to the AI and opens up like these hooks into your network, so you can start bolting on an LLM on top of your network and doing some really cool stuff with automation. And so as that series evolved, I got to the point where, okay, so we've built an MCP server for the different Cisco products. We know what MCP is. There must be also a way to have a fully autonomous way for the AI to do some of the day-to-day mundane stuff that network engineers handle. And so if we look at that, just one of the use cases I wanted to highlight, which you're a CCIE, one of the best network engineers I've ever met.
Too kind.
If you look at one of the biggest problems that you face, and that one of the reasons a lot of the networks out there go down is configuration drift, right? And we talked about this when we were out there talking about automation. We talked about, hey, treat your network as code, have a source of truth for your configuration and your documentation, and from there, like, have some type of Ansible playbook that comes in and reads and then make sure that it's one-to-one.
Yep.
In that we've preached for what, 7 years in DevNet.
We did.
And so with AI today, we have the tools to be able to essentially have AI handle most of that for us, building on top of MCP, and where we essentially have an agent that that manages multiple agents, sub agents, And these sub-agents are built on top of the different network MCPs that we have access to. And that supervisor agent watches, we talked about event-driven automation
Mhm.
from a networking automation perspective, where you hook in your Catalyst Center, Meraki, or what are we calling it now? Cloud controller, or maybe you have Netbox in the mix. You hook in all these webhooks, they get fired off, right? And then you receive them. Your Ansible playbook could receive it, or you have a middleware that receives it somehow and does something, right? Well, what if we replace that with AI itself? So we're not building the code. We don't have anything. We just build an agentic workflow that we pass the data to. We give the AI instructions on what it's supposed to do, and let it handle it for us. And
Mhm.
we are human in the loop to figure out, okay, is this true or not? Should we implement those changes? Is this a configuration drift or not? And one of the tools that were made it possible for me as I'm building this is it's called N8N. I'm sure a
Mhm.
lot of your viewers are familiar with it.
Yeah.
You're familiar with it. I saw you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I have a session too about it. Yes, it's a super cool tool, especially
So
as you start building AI agents because it has that component built in, right? So it makes it very easy.
exactly. So with that in mind, like I said, okay, why don't we just build an agentic workflow using the components that are relevant to us, using the nodes that we need, to automate that end to end. And this is what we're going to do together today. I don't normally do this, so this is going to be this is going to be the live Kareem and Adrian show, where I'm actually going to build the workflow from scratch together.
That's exactly what we want, Kareem, on this stream, right? It's show me how it works. Let's go under the hood. Show me the code. Show me all the components, how they come together. And if we run into issues and it doesn't work, that's perfectly fine. We troubleshoot together, and people watch, ask questions, and learn from this.
Perfect. So let's do it. Okay.
Okay, so
Um,
let's bring the share screen in, and then have a couple hands. Hans, hey, thanks for watching this. Verlaine, hi, thanks for watching this. And then Dharmesh, talk about real world example. Don't talk about other stuff. Give some use cases. That's what we're actually going to do, Dharmesh, right? Krim is going to show, like we said, config drift with an AI agent. It's going to build the whole workflow that's going to monitor configuration of devices for any changes, basically.
right.
Super
So
useful use case. Yeah.
it's something that we all face, configuration drift. So
Yeah.
the way that we talk about configuration drift, we from a from our perspective, Adrian, we say, okay, use some type of source of truth. In this case,
Mm-hmm.
Netbox. And that Netbox has essentially the documentation of your network. And in this case, I am using Netbox for this demo, and it's managing a demo organization that I have in Meraki, my Cisco U organization, and it has a couple of devices.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna pick on this access switch, the MR. It's the
220.
220.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that reflects on this here, but you can see initially this Meraki switch is called something different than what is in my netbox. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
configuration drift in itself, a simple configuration drift, but it shouldn't happen, right? And then what we also brought in as part of this is Splunk itself. So I have a Splunk instance running here. This Splunk instance, whenever anything happens, any changes, whether a change happens in my Meraki configuration or a change that happens on my documentation in Netbox, these webhooks get fired off to my instance, my Meraki, I apologize, my Splunk instance, and it essentially it receives that configuration and it saves it into Splunk. And I'm in Splunk itself. I'm using HTTP event collector as part of my configuration, and it saves as part of my ingestion mechanism into Splunk, and it saves the data into the index, into Meraki index. So that's essentially what kind of the the connections that are happening. So everything starts from Netbox. Events get fired off into Splunk. Events go out to Meraki. It changes the configuration. There's no drift there. Somebody goes into the Meraki dashboard. They make a change. An event gets fired off also into Splunk, but now Netbox and Meraki are not one to one.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where Drift Guard comes in play. And this is the workflow that we're going to be building. And the first thing that we want to do, if you think about it, we're going to do this in three pieces. Excuse me. The first piece is, how are we going to get these webhooks in, right? Which is, I need to build essentially, first off, a webhook listener.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, if you've been doing DevNet for a while, this is very familiar to you. It's essentially just a webhook receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to receive a post request, because that's what you're essentially going to get. And then I'm going to go in and say, as part of the respond mode here, when that last node is finished, it's going to respond back with, hey, I've successfully received this webhook. Okay. And this is the first trigger that's going to trigger my workflow. Now, I also, at the same time, I want to be able to not only have this workflow receive webhooks and events, but I also want to be able to chat with the data that's coming in. And so in this case, I'm going to also build a chat trigger. So I can just look. This is a node that I'm bringing in here.
So it's this easy, right, to build the webhook receiver in n8n compared to what we were showing people. Hey, you have to build the Flask app in Python, right, and manage the payload and the where you receive it. In n8n, it's basically a drag and drop, and you've seen from the drop-down menu, you just select, oh, it's a post message and what you want to do with it. So it is really that easy.
It's super simple. And so this is a chat trigger, essentially, that I receive, and I'm going to also define a response mode here, and I'm going to make this streaming. I'm also going to allow file uploads in case I want to do a mini rag where I want to upload some configuration or upload something to the LLM to be able to have it maybe compare between what's in Netbox and what we have. So I'm going to allow a file upload as well for this chat trigger. So these are my two entry points. I can chat with this within this workflow, or I can receive a webhook. Now, before we do anything to send those payloads out to the model, we want to make sure that we kind of sanitize that data and make sure that it always looks the same, whether it's coming from me chatting with the AI or the JSON payload that comes in. And so if you think about it from a coding perspective, right, you would essentially create a variable, and within that variable, you will assign, or you will give it the payload itself, the JSON itself, the JSON body that's coming from that API. In this case, and then you'll be able to massage that data, loop through it and pull the pieces out from the key value pair and so forth, right? In our case, we want to be able to do the exact same thing. And so we're going to receive a JSON from here. And so what we want to do next is we want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to create an edit field. And that edit field is, think of it as my variable. And that edit field is going to be the, first of all, coming from the webhook, it's going to be the JSON body for that webhook. So that's what I'm going to call it. And then I'm going to add a field, and this is just like how we create dictionaries, right? And this is going to be my webhook body, and it's of type string. And that's going to be essentially the value of it is going to be coming from the webhook itself. The way that n8n works, in order for you to be able to access the values from the previous
component
node,
or
you
node?
have
Yeah.
to execute it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see it here. So what I could do is for us to just see. I have I think this is. Let me save this here. So this is my webhook URL right here, right? So this, if I do a curl to this API endpoint, I should be able to receive some data. So I have a simple curl here that I'm gonna try to see if it executes. I want to see if I'm gonna receive it. So let's wait for it here.
So you start the workflow, it's waiting for it, and you do a curl basically at a post call to that local host webhook receiver that's waiting for.
Yeah, but let me copy the actual URL, the proper
Yep.
URL. I think I have it. I have a stale URL.
And that's just testing, making sure that the webhook receiver works and it's listening and you're getting the actual payload, and then you pass it on to the next component, where you were like transforming it to a variable basically that you can use as part of your workflow, right? You were calling it webhook body.
That's exactly right. So here's my curl. I'm writing it, and I apologize. I'm probably not sharing the screen, so
It's just a regular curl,
it's
right?
just a regular curl command. And if it doesn't work, we can move on. It's fine. Okay, so it's all good. Regardless, you could. It's now it's gonna receive that JSON body, and what's gonna happen here is I'm gonna actually receive from the previous node. And if I go here, the value of it from the previous node, it's gonna be the body of it, and I'm gonna just make sure that I clean up this JSON and make it an actual true JSON. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is my my variable that captures the body. Again, the next here for my chat, I want to be able to do the same, right? And so what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do here, I'm also going to create a JSON, a set editor, edit field set. In this case, I'm going to have it be my normalizing chat input.
Yeah.
If I can spell. And in this case, my normalizing chat input is also going to have a, a variable,
Yeah.
called webhook body. So now both my triggers are coming into the exact same key value pair, and then I can go to my AI the next step to say you'll be receiving these key value pairs, or you'll be receiving this body, and it's going to know that it's always going to be webhook body, or it's called
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And then again, from the previous chat, I need to do a little bit of massaging on this because it's a full-on chat. And so you can see I'm going to bring in the alert type coming in from chat. I'm going to massage it and have it have more information, date stamp, and actual text. And that's essentially all the pieces that I need for me to have to basically save my chat input into a JSON format so I can pass it to the AI. Okay. So far, we have our basically bringing things in.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go. Let's not do that. Let me make sure I save this. And next piece here that we want to build is our phase 2, which is bringing in actual AI, right? And so I talked a little bit about this. Before I bring in AI, I want to show you a pre-built couple of pieces. But I want you, the way that I've designed this is I have a supervisor agent. So I
Mm-hmm.
have an AI. That's the supervisor that manages other agents underneath it. And the sub agents do and perform one task and one task only. These sub agents, I have 3 sub agents, and let's do this. Let's go to let's open up my N8N instance again. And I'll show you I have 3 sub-agents, okay? I have a Netbox agent or sub-agent, a Meraki agent, and a Splunk agent. And this is how they look like. This is essentially what that flow is. It's super simple. It's saying you're going to receive either a chat from someone, or you're going to be executed when you receive a command from another workflow. So these are my 2 inputs for this sub agent. And this is just an AI that connects to my Netbox MCP server. And it does 2 things as tools. It gives that sub agent, the Netbox agent, access to the list of all tools that Netbox supports, that Netbox MCP supports. This way, the AI knows which functions it can call, right? And then it allows it to execute on these functions that it has, or these tools that it has access to via MCP. And then at the core of it, the actual large language model is Sonnet 4.6 running in my AWS instance and over AWS Bedrock. So Bedrock is providing me with the large language model. Does this make sense?
Does, yes.
So this is one agent. Now, I don't need to go through the other 3. They're the exact same thing. They're all sub-agents, and they perform one task and one task only, which is what? Go out to my Meraki, list the tools that you have access to via MCP, and when you have those, execute accordingly. I will tell you what to do. But I'm not going to tell it what to do. Go ahead,
It's
sorry.
it's just a different MCP server. It's the same exact thing, the same agent. It's just you're pointing to a Meraki MCP server or a Splunk or a Netbox and MCP server. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're 100% correct. So if we go back to our workflow here, now I don't want to have to manage, I don't want to have to build a workflow for every single MCP server or sub agent that I have. And this is where the supervisor agent comes in play. So on top of the 3 agents that we just talked about, I've put up an supervisor agent, and I gave that supervisor agent a prompt to basically say, hey, these are the things you're going to be in charge of. And I'll walk you through what the prompt is. And so let's go ahead and build that supervisor agent. And so in this case, I'm going to be adding an AI agent node. And in here, I'm going to say, I need to define a prompt below. Let's try to see if we can open this up for us to see. So, and this is the prompt. I have it here that I need to paste it. Let me grab it for us. It's pretty extensive, but you'll get why. All right. So let me make it into Markdown so you can all see it here. So there are a couple of things that are happening with this supervisor agent. First of all, we have 2 triggers, right? We have the webhook trigger and the chat trigger. It needs to know whether a person is chatting with it or it's coming from one of our tools that we have to trigger that workflow. And so in your chat mode, these are the things that you're going to be doing. And I think I'm going to bring in, give me 1 second, Adrian. I'm going to bring in the actual markdown for this prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's gonna be cleaner for the agent to traverse.
And it's a science, right? Building these prompts is a trial and error, basically, until you get the right one. So for folks out there, right, Kareem has taken a bit of time to actually figure out the exact prompt for this, right, Kareem? It's not,
and
not like
yeah, absolutely. And it's fine tuning too,
yeah.
right? You need to make sure that, okay, does it do what it's supposed to do, and so forth. So if we look at the prompt here, this is our mode detection. So you're going to be able to parse the input and detect, is this coming from a chat mode or is this coming from an alert from straight from drift guard, which is essentially telling it that the webhook was executed. So if it's a chat mode, here's the initial prompt. You are a drift guard operator assistant, so it's acting as an operator in this case. A senior network engineer with full access to Meraki, NetBox, and Splunk. Read alert.message. If you remember, that was part of our chat JSON body that we've saved, and act as an operator for this. The next part, which this is where the act as an operator, which means chat with me, right? And I don't know why it's looking all weird for us here, but maybe I'll go through it here better. And then the next part is the drift guard mode. This is where everything is happening, which means you're a drift guard, an autonomous network configuration drift prevention system. Your only source of truth is NetBox. And then you have three paths. Path one is path A, which means if the source is NetBox, if the JSON payload that you're receiving here is coming straight from NetBox, this is not a configuration drift. This is authorized. This is what we want you to do, right? To go change it in NetBox in your source of truth and move it down to your network. So when we look at this, look up the device in NetBox by serial number, authorize the configuration from NetBox, and go implement those changes to your organization. And in this case, I'm managing a bunch of organizations in my account for Meraki, so I wanted to make sure that I only manage the Cisco U org for the sake of this so I don't make any other changes. But then path B is if the changes came from Meraki dashboard, that means what? That means this is an unauthorized drift, and go ahead and you have to actually detect that this is unauthorized, go back to your NetBox, figure out what happened, figure out what were the previous values, and then send me an alert and prevent this drift from happening, where you restore the configuration back to what it was from NetBox. And then if you don't have any information about any of this, and you got some rogue endpoint, a rogue payload from your webhook endpoint, go investigate. You have access to Splunk. There are some change logs there. Find the gaps, fill it in, go to Meraki, get information, go back to NetBox. So you figure that out, but don't take any decisions. Don't make any changes without investigating. Okay. And then I've set up some pretty extensive rules in this prompt. Never fabricate values. We all know AI hallucinates. Okay. Match by serial number first. When I was fine-tuning this prompt, I ran into an issue where if the name of the switch or the device is not the same name as the NetBox, it doesn't know what to do, because everything is identified by serial number. So I told it, go look up a serial number. Don't just try to match the names. And then again, I want to stick to this organization and then send. This is the best part for me. This supervisor agent I've instructed to actually write its own prompt to the sub agents. So I don't actually have to do anything. It's just the supervisor agent using the sub agents and the MCP server as an input to the sub agents that I just showed you. It's going to write its own proper prompt to get the data that it needs via MCP. So how cool is that? Okay.
I want to see this working towards the end. Once we get it working, I want to see how it builds the promise. This is really cool.
Okay, so we'll go through it. Let's finish it, and then we'll go from there. And anyway, and then the last piece that I wanted to actually do is I wanted to make sure I have a standardized JSON payload for anything that happens. So I can take that JSON payload and build a WebEx card, adaptive card, so I can post a WebEx room with a simple report of what happened to my network. Okay, so I gave it a template here. This is the template I want you to reuse as an output. This way I know exactly what's coming out of my agent. Sorry, as an output from my agent, yes. And I can traverse that and build my adaptive card in WebEx. Cool, pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, there's a couple pieces of configuration that we want to make sure that we do in this AI. So we've defined the prompt. We want to do enable streaming on this, so it could actually respond back to my and let me close my prompt here real quick so it doesn't get in my way.
Just wanted to say a quick hi to Yanis. Yanis, thanks for watching this all the way from Greece. The Karim, you know Yanis. And
Yeah,
then
Ioannis, how you doing?
Ray, he's here to pump it up. Ray, thanks for watching this also. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well, Ray.
So so far, by the way, I know I'm going through this. I want to make sure, any questions, Adrian, on this? Any questions from our audience on any of that?
People are watching. So no questions so far. It's just like they wanted a real world example, which we're giving them. So this is config drift. But yeah, no, we're good, Kareem. Keep
We're
going.
good. Okay. So we've defined our prompt. We have the streaming mode done. And then I think I want to make sure, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. So this is our, let's call it supervisor agent. So supervisor agent. Now that supervisor agent is going to receive two inputs, right? This guy has an input and this guy has an input.
To sanitize data from the webhook and basically from the chat. Yep.
Exactly. The model, like I said, for this guy as well, for this agent as well, I'm going to use my Bedrock AWS account, and I know why it doesn't populate, so I gotta actually, now it's gonna populate. So
on 4.6, right? Right.
Yep.
That's the LLM we're using here.
So I'm do Claude Sonnet 4.6, and that's the brain of the operation here. So I provided it a model. I want memory too. So as part of my, in order for you, so what's going to happen is, and this is why I added memory to this, as I was building this out, if I'm receiving a webhook with no memory, the supervisor agent processes it and does all the magic, right? But if I try to ask it questions about the webhook after it processes it, it doesn't know what to do. So it has to actually go back and use tokens and figure things out, even though it has everything that it needs in its chat history or it's in the session history. So this is where memory comes in play. It's
basically
very useful.
Context, right? You're giving it, you're saving so that it has context of what happened before, right before.
Exactly. So in this case, I'm gonna do a simple memory, and I'm gonna say define below. I'm gonna define a key for it. That's just basically telling it save the data in that key so I can access it later. And I don't know, let's open up the context window to 20.
You could also have like a database in here, right, Karim? So you could have like a
Yeah.
Postgres database or all types of database. Like that would bring it to an enterprise level. It's not just simple memory. You build a database, then it saves all the queries in there, all the data, all the webhook information. So then you have a historic view, and also you give it more context to the agent to have. So
yeah, you can do right here simple memory, or you can do Mongo, Redis,
Postgres. Yeah.
So I tried to do Mongo. It was a little bit of an overkill for my my use case here, so I kept it simple memory.
And that works. Postgres is actually fairly easy to set up. So, but yeah, simple memory, that's the easiest one.
So we have this wire to our memory, and now tell me, what are we going to do in tools here?
Tools, we're
Yeah.
gonna go to our 3 sub agents, right? We're gonna call
Yes,
them, right? Yeah.
exactly. So I think
We're
it
passing the
is,
workflow to them, yeah.
yeah, we're going to call an init and workflow, and we're going to define it, but it's going to maybe from the database actually. Yeah, here we go. So in this case, I have access to the 3 sub agents.
Mhm.
And then it's expecting an input, a query, right?
Mhm.
In my case, I'm not going to define it. I'm actually just going to tell the model, because I told it as part of my instruction, go prompt these sub agents.
So that's the cool thing. The supervisor agent is actually gonna build the prompt itself, so that's really nice.
Okay. I don't really like what call Splunk agent. Let's just say this is Splunk sub agent,
Mhm.
and then I'll do this again for
That
the other
works at
2.
Meraki.
Yep. So call any10 here. I'm gonna I picked Splunk. I'm do nutbox. I'll have AI define that, and then
So, folks,
nutbox.
there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Kareem is showing you, right? So AWS Bedrock, he had already pre-configured from before, so we didn't show the connection on how it's done, but he had already done it previously to this and brought it into N8N. So you put in like an API key there, Kareem
That's
credentials, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty much
exactly
it.
right. You
Yeah.
you go into your AWS instance. You go to Bedrock service.
Mm-hmm.
You tell it I want access to this model, and
Mm-hmm.
then you attach a security policy to that access, where you generate an API token. In my case, I used client uh, um, uh, access key ID and secret,
Mm-hmm.
and then you the region, and you're all set. That's pretty much it. And then as you saw me connecting the LLM, it gave me a drop down of all the models that API key has access to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then finally, this is my netbox. Or I think I should have my Meraki sub agents in here. Yep. Let me clean this up a little bit. Meraki sub agent. How are we doing on time, Adrian?
We're good. We still have 20 minutes. So
Cool. We're almost getting there. Okay, so at this point right here, folks, we've defined the brain of the operation. We've defined the input. The next logical step would be our output, right? And
mhm.
we just want to do something with it. In my case, I want to be able to monitor what the heck is happening when this workflow runs. So next piece here is I want to capture that output, and I want to make sure that I whatever they I normalize again the output from the agent, so I can do something with it. I'm going to create another variable. So this is an edit field set node, and in this case, this is going to be let's call it output. I'm going to add again a field. I'm going to save everything into an output string, and not output. It's output. But is it agonizing watching me type?
No, no. It was just a question came through while you were struggling typing over there, Kareem. Could you share the flow by JSON? Yes. So Jonathan, we'll have a GitHub repo where you can find all of this with instructions, right? So you'll have the recording of this video as Kareem goes through, but also all the steps explained in the GitHub repo that Kareem will share at the end. So you'll get access to the JSON, N8N workflow, right? You can import it and have everything running. You'll have to, of course, add your own API keys, right? Your own webhooks, but the components are going to be all there in that JSON file. Sorry, Kareem. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. That's exactly right. Thanks for covering that. So at this point, we have an output. Again, if you look at it, we just basically saved it getting the output from the previous node, right? when it executes, saving it as a key value pair with the key as output. So now I can access it for the things, and I can, as like we said, if you remember, part of my prompt was, your output is, I need you to give me this JSON. You can give me anything else, but I need that JSON in this format, right? Which means now I could go in and build out my my WebEx notification as to post it, right? But before I do this, I have to compensate for the fact that there might be a chat, right? This whole execution might happen from a chat trigger as opposed to webhook, which means that that output itself that we've defined as part of the supervisor agent at the bottom here is not going to be valid because it's not coming from a payload, right? So I need to actually have an if and else statement. Or an if statement here, say, is this coming from my webhook or is this coming from my chat? If it's coming from my webhook, then I want you to go execute a flow to post a WebEx card, adaptive card. If it's coming from a chat, don't do anything. Just continue chatting in the chat window, okay? So if I go here, I'm going to go an if statement. And in my if statement, I'm going to say, I don't know, let's do value. Let's just call it value one. It doesn't matter. It's a bad name. And I want to do check for the operation is not equal to, which means it's not coming from a chat. And if you remember, one of the JSON bodies that we were parsing and we've set in our chat value is this coming from is this a chat? So this is essentially going to pull out the value of where is this coming from as part of the body, and it's going to check, is this coming from a chat? So if this value is equal to so value one is not equal to value two, should be, no, this is not right. I apologize. My value one is this guy. This is I need to extract if it's chat, and value two has to be equal to chat. So if it's not equal to chat, I want you to go, and which means if it's not equal to chat here, and this is true, then I know a webhook was executed, and therefore I need to start building my WebEx card. Before I build the WebEx card, so we're all familiar with the WebEx APIs. You have to define a room, you have to define a bot token, you supply a bot token with the room, and you do a post in the JSON, in the body of that request as the adaptive card itself, right? I don't want to have to build all of that on the fly. I know exactly what's coming as an output from my supervisor agent, which means now I can just basically put in a simple code snippet. I had AI build this code snippet for me, actually, that says, I gave it my template, my JSON template, and I told it, go figure out what does that look like. Use JavaScript, use Python. It chose JavaScript, but if you look at it here, and we're not gonna type this from scratch. If we look at it here together, it's basically a simple JavaScript that captures and loops through the JSON that's coming out of the output. It does some regex, and it builds out the adaptive card for me dynamically. So I can take that here, and we call this build WebEx card. And from this point on here, all I have to do next is just post it. So I'm going to do request, which is an HTTP request. In this case, it's going to be a post. The URL for it, and I have it here, is this. It's the message endpoint. messages endpoint. I have a pre-configured bot. This is authentication. I'm going to use, I think it's generic credentials with my bot token, which is bearer auth. Again, folks, this is all just API documentation from the WebEx APIs.
Yeah.
And I have my bearer auth account here, which is my bot token itself that I've built. And then I need to send a body, right? And I think I need to send. Do I need to send a header? No, I don't need to send a header. I need to send the body, and in that body, I have to specify the JSON from the previous node.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll bring it from the previous node. So value would be this. And that's it. So that's going to essentially build my WebEx adaptive card from the JavaScript, pass it on to this API call. It's going to do a post request to the WebEx APIs, and then it's going to post it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That's my workflow.
All right.
So we've built it together. Now it's a bit of a baking show. As you know, all of this is event-driven automation. So currently, my Netbox, my Meraki, and Splunk, they're all connected to the other workflow that I've built prior to this. So I'm just going to go back to my actual workflow, which if you look at it, it looks exactly the same as what we've built together. And then let's start executing. So let's go first with to Netbox. So I'm going to show you this instead of having it go trigger on the fly. Let's go here and change let's change the configuration.
The whole thing, or whatever it is.
Yeah, let's just give this a new. Let's go in devices. I just want to edit this and edit the name of it and call it, I don't know, Meraki access switch MS220. It's not MR, it's an MS actually. We save that. Hopefully this gets triggered. Yep, the webhook got received. The JSON body here. The supervisor agent has received the request. It said, this is coming in drift guard mode activated. This came in from an authorized change. So path A.
Which is from Netbox?
Yep. And now it's doing a parallel lookup. It's going into, it executed the Meraki agent, and it's calling that Meraki agent. Hopefully it works. Yep. Here we go. So that Meraki agent.
It's telling you that it has a different host name for that, basically.
Yeah.
For that serial number. Yeah.
The source is webhook was Netbox. So step 2, parallel lookup. It went, and this is the part. So here's the query. It told it, I did not define this. This is not hard-coded anywhere. This is the prompt to the sub-agent saying, in the Cisco U organization, find the device with serial number so-and-so. It got this information from the payload coming from Netbox. Go ahead and give me some configuration details. The output from the sub-agent to the supervisor agent says, hey, here's a complete detailed summary of everything retrieved from the device with serial number, blah, 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 blah. So the supervisor agent now has this piece of information. The next logical step is going to go to Netbox and say, okay, look up the device with serial number this and return a fully configuration, including name, site, status, primary IP. So it pulled all information about it. And not only this, it also followed our rule, which is Netbox is our source of truth, which means it went back to Netbox. It didn't really need to, but it actually went back and made sure that it's there. it saved things in my buffer, and then it parsed the complete information that it got from Netbox, and then it went back to the Meraki agent, and it says, in the Cisco U organization, update the name of the device with serial number so and so to this. And again, folks, we built it together. I had nothing to do with this project.
This is so cool. This is so cool.
And then the sub agent came back to the supervisor and said, okay, here it is. Here's your information. I've updated it. If I go back to my Meraki dashboard here, it's changed it to what we changed together, right?
Yep.
And sorry, that's not what I need. And then it finally executed the output.
And you should have that WebEx message, right?
And if I need to share this. Hold on. Let me share my WebEx real quick.
So yes, you actually gave it write access, right? Because some folks is like, hey, just give me a report. Don't actually go and do the change. But since you're in a lab environment, Kareem is like, go all the way.
we should talk about that. So and this is a really, really valid point, Adrian. This is what we're doing here is we're showing the art of possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to figure out. Apologize, I'm just trying to get you guys access to the output. And so if you can see it here, it outputted. This is what the card that it built for us.
Authorized change. Yeah.
Authorized change from Netbox. This is the name. It gives you a little synopsis of what happened, and it came from that source of truth. But we should talk about this for a second, Adrian. What I'm showing you here, first of all, we don't know what kind of security. Like this is a lab, right?
Yeah.
The Bedrock is the LLM is hosted in Bedrock, but it's still kind of mainstream large language model, mainstream AI. So we don't know what they're doing with the data that's being passed to it from our network. That's number one from a security perspective. Number two, if I were to be building this for a production level, it would not be hosted on my laptop. It would not be NNN would not be hosted on my laptop. I would not be giving it a direct write access to update, even if it's just a simple name. I would have a human in the loop somewhere, breakage here between the supervisor agent and the Meraki agent, where it essentially I have to say, okay, go ahead and process this for every single thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we can send a message out to the same way to WebEx with a button that says, okay, I authorize this change or not, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we need to put human in the loop in this for it to be almost, even with that, almost production ready. So we just have to be conscious of that, and we got to understand the risks that we are taking by giving it a full autonomous control of our network. And I think that's what you were trying to get to.
Yes, and also Ray was asking here a question in the same vein here. So have you tried using an open source model to do the same work, something like a GPT OSS 120 billion parameters, or like a Llama 3.3 or some Quen variant, if a company wants to keep the whole thing in-house? Yes. So you could, Ray, right? If you watch my session with N8N, you'll see I'm using Ollama locally running on a laptop, and I have Llama 3.3 running. I don't know if it's the 70 billion parameter, but I have it running locally on your machine. So you can keep everything in-house, right? You don't need to use AWS with Bedrock. You can point to your own local LLM. And let me see, Kareem, okay, so there we go.
So were folks able to see the WebEx
yes
message? Okay. Yep. So now let's cause a drift. Okay. Now, obviously, because everything is in chat buffer, you all know we have about 4 minutes, so I'm not going to get into the chat, but I can chat with the data that I have access to. I can ask it what really happened, who made the changes. I can tell it, go to Splunk, get me more historical details of what happened, right? So I'm not going to do that. I want to actually show you a drift. So we're gonna clear this execution, and we're gonna wait for a configuration change. And let's just go ahead and do an IP address change. So we're gonna go from 100 to 20, 10, 10, 10, 100, and let's save this. What did I do? Oh yeah, because this is wrong gateway. So let's save this. Now, folks, Meraki, the way that webhooks in Meraki, if you've experienced it, it takes about 10 minutes before an alert gets sent out. Okay. So what I've done is I've pre-captured the alert that we should be receiving as a JSON payload. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just execute that workflow via Postman or Bruno, where so we're not waiting 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes. So it's the exact same payload that you'll be receiving from Meraki, just to show you. Again, in this case, our AI supervisor agent received the request, and it says, this is not a chat detection. So I received a payload from Meraki dashboard with these values, and this is path B. Now, in this case, is a Meraki organization change or organized change, which is an unauthorized change. This is a drift. And then because it's a drift, it needs to go to the source of truth to figure out what the heck happened. So it's prompting Netbox and saying, hey, look up the device name, access switch MS220. I think that's the wrong device name. In my payload that I have saved, I didn't update it to match what's in Netbox, but I think it's okay. I think it will be able to go in and still look it up by serial number since it's the same device. And let's see what it's doing here. So it came back, Netbox lookup. Now I have information, and I have the authoritative values of this device. So it pulled it, actually came back with the right information, saying this is in Netbox, which is not what's in Meraki dashboard, changed by Kareem Iskander. It's going back out to the Meraki agent now. It's prompting it probably to update, to get the list of tools that it has access to and update the configuration in Meraki, since this is a drift. I'm actually curious while it's doing that, what it how it got the information. I guess because it pulled the serial number back. Let's see what Meraki did. So here it is. Here's the query for this case. It said, I got from Netbox the IP addresses. I need you to go in the Cisco U org, find the device serial number and with the name this, and then go ahead and update the IP addresses. The Meraki agent came back with static IP remediation complete. Device successfully reverted to Netbox. What's in Netbox, and it gave me a report here. Drift analysis, unauthorized IP change detection, old values, new values are wrong, unauthorized. So I did a Netbox lookup. I went in and I've updated the device information. And here's a full report of what happened. This is my payload that I'm going to be posting to output to WebEx. And if I go back to this configuration here that we just did together, you can see it reverted back to our original 192 IP addresses. So you can see how useful or powerful it is. It needs a little bit of tweaking. This is not production ready. This is just kind of giving you a demo of what's happening, and walking you through how easy it is to bring in agentic workflows in your network operations. And I received the webhook from event from WebEx. I know this was something that folks asked about in here. So if you go over to
GitHub repo, yes.
this GitHub repo, and I'm sure Adrian is going to share with you this link.
Yep.
An entire write-up here for everything that we've done together, what's going on under the hood, the architecture. You can how to set up N8N on your local, get connected to the MCP servers I used. And I even provided you with a couple of sample payloads so you can test out that workflow. It's not going to make any changes if you don't actually have access to the Cisco pieces in this, but maybe you can leverage the DevNet sandbox for your testing on this.
And I'm just sharing with folks the repo link. Here's the repo link. And you can also see it on the video here, folks. All right, Kareem, we're top of the hour here. So final words, right? There's a lot of components coming into this, right? There's MCP, there's N8N with the AI agent, there's of course Splunk individually, Netbox, Meraki, whatever, Catalyst Center, whatever other product you might have. But this is just an example of how to bring all these components together, right, to build a config drift AI agent, supervisor agent, right? So super cool use case. And you've seen the demo, and the demo worked. So kudos, Kareem, live demo.
We did it live, Adrian.
We did it live.
Everything that we believe in.
So final words, Kareem, before we wrap this up. Thanks again for doing this, by the way.
Thanks, Adrian, for having me on. This is super fun. Hopefully, folks, you walked away learning something new today. Just having a better understanding of what you can do with AI. Just one thing that I can't emphasize more on, just be mindful of the security, be mindful of the models, be mindful of what data that you feed the AI, because we got to make sure that we protect our networks, our configuration, and ourselves. We don't know where that data is going.
Exactly. So yes, folks, while it's easy, right, to build all these workflows and all these agents, be mindful, like Kareem was saying, what you're doing, because there's a real security concern here, especially once you start using open LLMs, right? Or that you don't have to pay. If you don't pay for them, you're the product, right? So they will use your data to train that model. And if you put any proprietary data in there, guess what? That's going to be part of the LLM that's getting trained with your data. So keep that in mind. It's easy, but that doesn't mean that you have to be sloppy. Please keep in mind that security aspect of it. Kareem, thanks again. Thanks all for watching. I think I've addressed all the questions here. LLM, we've said it, we've answered, Ray, all your questions. Hello from Vegas, Michael. Hi, thanks for watching this. I've shared the repo links. Jonathan, they're in the description on Facebook. Ioannis, last time I saw you two together, still talked about WebEx rooms automation, right? It's funny because we still were talking about WebEx in 2018. We're still talking about WebEx, but with an AI twist this time. So, Ioannis, thank you for watching this, man, and for being there. Always really appreciate it. Verlaine. Okay, thanks all. Kareem, again, thank you. And then we'll bring you back whenever you have something else to share with us. We'd love to have you back, man.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks, folks, for watching. We'll see you next week. We'll bring Keith Baldwin. We'll talk some cool Catalyst Center with AI. So it's going to be a cool session next week, same time, same day. We'll see you.